off questions. Let's see if we can get it done that way.
Greg, this is Chip. Are you, I guess the first question would be, are you surprised by the outcome? I know you guys really, you expressed interest in keeping Tech if at all possible. Obviously, y'all didn't have that opportunity under this scenario, so can you address not being able to play any non-conference opponents in Tech in particular?
Yeah, was I surprised? No, because that was a recommendation that was made to the presidents after our call yesterday. So no, I was not surprised in the decision. And you know, we had so many variations of models to look at that we had to narrow them down to 2 or 3, which we did. But in the final analysis, keeping everything within the SEC was from a medical standpoint for the whole. I mean, there are 4 of us that have in-state rivalries, but there are 10 others that don't. And so when you're able to control your schedule from an SEC only, it's more efficient. You don't have to worry about trying to schedule when those games happen and how it's fair to the other schools, and knowing that you have some flexibility on the back end with the SEC championship date. And starting later in the fall, certainly all those things came into play, which led to the decision to play SEC games only.
Hey, Greg, can you just do me a quick favor, please, and just maybe back up just a skosh, because we're going to turn this around and get you on at 6 o'clock, if that's okay.
Sure.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Is this all about just, you said scheduling flexibility and preparing for a possible spike in COVID once the students coming back in campus, thus the delay by a few weeks, Greg?
Well, it was, we certainly listened to our medical professionals and felt like a later start would really put us in a better position from a health standpoint. We'd be able to observe what's going on for those that may start on time. We'd be able to see what happens in the NFL and just have more data to compare before we started. So all those things lined up, and certainly there were a lot of robust discussion in the room, but we all landed and agreed that the 10-game schedule was where we needed to end up.
Greg, do you expect that you'll open the season against Alabama, and will the next 2 SEC West in the rotation, meaning Arkansas and Mississippi State, will they be the 2 teams that added to your schedule?
No, I wouldn't really pay attention to any dates. The only thing for certain is that we'll play our Eastern opponents, and then we have Auburn and Alabama, obviously, and then we'll have 2 more. But we have not even started that discussion, and there was not an intent to go there first, because that might have swayed some decision making if we knew who we were going to play. So we'll start that discussion very soon with the commissioner.
Greg, do you know yet how you'll handle these non-conference opponents and the contract deals that you have with them? Will you go ahead and pay those guys, or are you able to opt out via force majeure?
Well, we'll have our legal experts review that, and we'll deal with that after their review, and really just go from there.
Greg, on a personal level, I understand the health aspect and wanting to keep a week open, but do you have any feel anything emotionally, or are you sad at all the fact that a major rivalry game is being basically sacrificed?
Sure. I mean, that game means so much to everyone, and it's just unfortunate that it was affected. But you know, there's so much change going on in today's world that we just need to expect the unexpected. And I think it just happened that it just was not able to be worked out, and it's unfortunate. But you know, we look forward to resuming that rivalry in 2021, and we'll just go from there.
Greg, is there any discussion about the Georgia-Florida game not being in Jacksonville this year?
No, I talked to Scott a little bit earlier. The one thing I wouldn't want to do was to play Florida here with a limited crowd and then go to Gainesville in 2021 with 93,000 fans. I don't think we want to be in that position. So right now, unless something changes, that game would still be in Jacksonville.
Greg, as far as the Georgia Tech game in 2021, will that game still be in Atlanta schedule, or will that be flipped back to Georgia for that year?
You know, I haven't talked to Todd yet. We spoke last week, and I'm sure we'll have a discussion on that and just see what we can do and have that discussion. But it's just so much has happened today and yesterday with the ACC that Todd and I just hadn't been able to huddle up on that.
That's actually what I was going to ask, was whether this was, because you guys haven't liked necessarily the setup of the end of your schedule in terms of when you played Tech on the road and when you played Auburn and that kind of thing. Is that something you'd like to get changed during this period?
You know, Chip, we just take a look at it. I think that's just something that we don't have to worry about right now, but certainly that's something we'll revisit here over the coming months.
Any indication, Greg, or expectation on when the schedule will be released?
No, as the release said, just at a later date, and that kind of mirrored my comments. You know, we'll start discussion now that we have a format. We'll start the discussion on that over the coming days.
Is the next thing fans in the stands, that decision, and will that be a conference-wide choice, or will that be up to individual schools? Well,
as you saw in the release, there's I think the conference will set some expectations. I don't think they'll get down to particular numbers, but the expectation to social distance, the expectation for masking, the expectations that we will follow CDC guidelines. So I think you've seen what's happened in some NFL stadiums, and I would expect probably college football to mirror that. But you know, the safety of everyone is of the utmost importance. So whatever that will yield in our stadium, that's what we'll go with. But we've got a little time. It's not pressing right now, but as soon as we have the information on our opponents and our home dates, then certainly we'll be able to tackle those things at that time.
Greg, do you all
know Greg, I know it's a hypothetical, but do you think if any of those other 10 schools had interstate rival games like you and Florida and Kentucky, do you think, and South Carolina, do you think there would have been more of an effort to try to save the rivalry games within the SEC?
You know, Jeff, that's a hypothetical. I don't know. I just don't know. I know the scheduling aspect of it with open dates and trying to make sure that you have some type of fair and equitable schedule drove the discussion. But certainly that was a topic that was discussed. But, you know, we have to remember there are 14 teams in the league, and certainly everybody's doesn't get their way every time.
Greg, do you know yet when y'all will start football pads and so forth? Does the later date affect that? That's what some people want to know.
That's a great question, Dean. I think
that's
the next discussion that will be had is, do you start 29 days before your first date, or do you start next week? So there'll be a lot of discussion in the medical community on that. I know the head coaches will be discussing that, and the NCAA may have to weigh in on that as well. So that's undetermined at this point in time. That's a good question, though.
Greg, do you think, had the ACC not made their decision like they did when they did that influence this decision?
No, it just kind of shocked us. It came out when it did because we had just gotten off our call, I think, an hour earlier. So, and we knew they were meeting on Wednesday, but I don't think we were expecting that to happen. But no, we had really had our discussion before the ACC announcement came out.
Greg, did the chancellors or presidents change any of your recommendations or come back to you guys with anything, or what you presented to them?
Well, I think they wanted to make sure that the protections were in place for the fans. So as you can tell in the release, as far as the social distancing and making sure that the conference set guidelines, and not getting into specifics, but there's certain expectations that I think anyone coming to an SEC game should have. They should feel safe. They should feel that the institution is using the best practices, and it's going to be different. And so, masks will be mandatory. We've got a great plan. I give a lot of credit to Josh Brooks and his staff. We've had an army of individuals working on what would our social distancing plan be. We're going through the final pieces of that now. And so once we release that, I think those that are able to come to our game can feel that they're as safe as possible. And we understand that some people that are able to come to the game may not feel comfortable coming to the game. So we understand that, but we just want to do our best to create the safest environment for anyone in the confines of Sanford Stadium, whether that's fans or student athletes. And that's our charge.
Would you say, Greg, this assures that a football season is going to come online?
Chip, we all hope, but you saw what happened to the Marlins. I mean, no one in college football has practiced yet. So I think this is just a date. It's a date we're holding. We sure hope we can start then, but I think as we've seen in professional sports already, this can change on a dime, but it does put kind of a marker in the sand by saying this is when we're going to start. And we're just hoping that we can certainly do our part and make sure that date does become a reality.
Greg, when you were talking about the scheduling earlier, and you said you didn't know when the games would be played, you did say that you knew you had Alabama and Auburn from the West and all the SEC opponents, or you indicated that. Is it for sure that you'll play those 8 teams then?
Yes, that will not change. We'll just add 2. We'll play 2 of the 5 other Western opponents, and we don't know who they are right now. But the remaining 8 games, opponents will stay intact. Dates, maybe not.
So, Greg, will the division stay intact as far as East? The winner of the East plays the West?
Yes.
Well, following up on the question about having kind of a schedule in place and everything, from your own standpoint, like as an athletic department, does it kind of give everybody a sigh of relief, I guess, from a financial standpoint, to say that there's more of a probability of this happening, or no?
Well, it allows us to narrow in on what our revenue will be, as well as our expenses to facilitate the games. So that's a relief, I know, to a lot of staff members, is to provide some clarity. I know it will be for the student athletes. They have a little direction now. They don't know who they play. They don't know exactly when practice will start. So, we've got to get on that really quickly to nail down those 2 items there. But I think it does kind of close the door somewhat in format and the hope to play. And now we just have to work on the details, or just activate the plans that we've been working on for so long.
Greg, what is the kind of, in your mind, the cutting off point of whether this is even worth it or not? I mean, if you playing 10-game schedules, rivalry games out, no fans or limited fans, is there a point that this, is just not worth it to try it, or to try to, and what are the options of moving to spring, which I know some people have mentioned?
Yeah. The spring was really not an option that we discussed. I mean, it was a fallback if everything else failed. But we'll just really listen to the science. And, we have an obligation to try to play, whether it's volleyball, soccer. I mean, these young people have a 3, 4, 5-year window to participate. And, we have an obligation to try to make that happen. But it's got to be done in a safe manner, and they have to feel safe. Their parents have to feel safe, and it's a new world. We all have to learn how to live in a COVID society. I mean, who thought we'd be on on a Zoom call March 1st. Who thought we'd be having to wear a mask everywhere we go? I mean, and it's not going away right now. So we have to learn how to live with this, but we can control certain aspects. We can control masking. We can control where we go. We can control who we hang out with. So all those things are important across the board, and it's going to be, a challenge to make sure that our fans adhere to the guidelines that will be in place, because it's really important that we all follow this protocol.
Greg, you brought up the parents. How are the parents handling all this, and how's the communication work with them as far as them being, informed as decisions being made on the fly, or not on the fly, but, ever changing?
Well, there are, each team handles parent conferences. We had a call at 4:30 today, a weekly call with any parent, any student athlete that wants to log in, and we have our whole staff, and we talked about it. In today's call, we probably had 50 questions from parents, from testing to isolation to weight room protocol to meals. I mean, you name it. We're out there answering every question. And we're also doing that with our student athletes. We have a call every week with our student athletes. They're able to opt in. It'll be a lot more intense when they do come back to start classes on the 20th. But, I tell you what, it's absolutely amazing to watch a lot of people that have really done a lot of heavy lifting. I mean, I know I talk about Ron Corson, Ann Aranda, Dr. Fred Riefsteck, the whole training crew. Our maintenance crew, I mean, if you see what they had to do to prepare and keep the weight room and all the buildings clean, and from a hygiene standpoint, and our strength staff, and, coaches in mask, and, it's so different, and, it's so foreign to what we've become accustomed to, but, we're adjusting to it. We've got to continue to adjust for it and be careful, because we know it can get out of hand pretty quickly if you ignore certain things.
Greg, so you guys have 4 home games, 5 road games, 1 neutral site, correct?
Correct.
And with the 3 non-conference games besides Georgia Tech, have you had any initial talks with them about putting them on a schedule in another year?
Well, we've reached out to, Carla and I spoke yesterday. She did call me after the ACC vote. So I said, Carla, we are not coming to Virginia. Okay, let's just make sure that's very clear. We're not coming to Charlottesville to play you as your +1. But no, we've reached out. Josh Brooks has reached out to East Tennessee State and ULM today. And we talked with them earlier, just asking them to be patient. And perhaps a future schedule. We just haven't gone down that road yet to see if there are openings. We're kind of full. I don't have my schedule before me now, but we don't have a lot of openings, so we'll just have to let the legal experts work through that and see what flexibility we have, or if we have flexibility with Josh Lee and our schedules moving forward to maybe work them in the schedule.
Greg, is there any way that you guys, if it was important enough to you, could you go rogue on Tech Georgia and just say, well, let's plan on playing in, Christmas Eve or something, and just to keep the rivalry going? I mean, or would that be going outside the SEC bylaw?
Yeah, there's a mandate that we play 10 games, and you have 2 open weeks. You've got one in the middle of the season, then everyone has an open date on the 12th. I don't think Kirby would be too excited to play 10 SEC games and then play Tech the week before. Hopefully, if we do well this year, to be in Atlanta. But certainly, it's unfortunate, Chip. It's just the way everything fell, and we'll move forward and renew the rivalry next year. Claude's muted. That may not Let's go. 2 more. Hey, don't any of you guys call me after this and want to talk to me, okay?
Can you read lips?
Give me a little time. It's like a press conference. You ask questions.
Greg, when you were talking about everybody's off on the 12th, are you talking, is that October 12th? I mean, you said there's 2 bye weeks.
It's December 12th. December 12th. I think the release stated that, to where there's an off day on December the 12th. There are 2, and that's kind of built into in case there's some issues there that we've got to for cancellations or games that had to be halted or things of that nature.
Greg, could you imagine when you were a child growing up, small Greg not seeing Tech and Georgia play? How hard is it to wrap your head around that won't happen?
It'll probably really sink in here the next couple of days, Dean. It's unfortunate, and you're seeing it really around college athletics this year. There's so many abnormal situations that are in play that will certainly create a lot of disappointment and unfortunate. It just have to be an open year, and I'd have to look back at other rivalries to see if there were times when games weren't played due to certain things. But the pandemic has just created so many oddities that a lot of things are almost out of your control. But it's just one of the things that's unfortunate when you're in a situation like this, and it's just unfortunate.
Okay, last question. Anybody? Okay.
Okay. Thank y'all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.